because this helps others to find us on YouTube. Today's lesson is lesson number 39. My holiness is my salvation. We've been talking about holiness for the last 3 lessons. Is it starting to feel real for you? Are you more and more accepting your own holiness? Lesson 35. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy, in which we were introduced to the idea that we are literally an idea in the mind of God. We can access God's wisdom, God's knowledge, God's perfection anytime that we are willing to get quiet and to ask God to show us the next steps that we need to take. Lesson 36. My holiness envelops everything I see. I want to bless. Everything that I look at, I want to envelop it with my holiness. I especially want to do this for the people in my life. The beautiful thing about this is that when I see the holiness in myself, I am able to see the holiness in another person. I send them my holiness and they send me back their holiness. Lesson 37. My holiness blesses the world. Nothing is left out. I want to remember to do this practice on a regular basis. The world needs all the help it can get. Yesterday's lesson, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. That was such an incredible lesson, wasn't it? Just starting to understand that we have all of God's power, all of God's glory, all of God's might, as long as we are willing to access it. And today's lesson, my holiness is my salvation. Let's read the first paragraph. If guilt is hell, what is its opposite? Like the text for which this workbook was written, the ideas for the exercises are very simple, very clear, and totally unambiguous. We are not concerned with intellectual feats nor logical toys. We are dealing only in the very obvious, which has been overlooked in the clouds of complexity in which you think. Let's talk about it. The lesson does answer the question, if guilt is hell, what is its opposite, a little later on, so we'll leave that to the side for now. This lesson introduces the idea of the text, which is a very important part of the course, but it is important to be aware that there are 2 other books, one being the basic text, which explains the principles of the course very clearly, and the second being the teacher's manual, which is a very small little book and guides us in how we are to share this message with others. We have talked before about the clouds of complexity. These clouds are the thinking of the world. They make it very difficult for us to see the truth, to see the reality of what is going on. We get all confused with things like guilt and shame, lack of forgiveness. The list goes on and on. We don't want to be confused by the thinking of the world. More and more the Course is showing us how to think with the mind of God. That's really what it's all about. Let's read on. If guilt is hell, what is its opposite? This is not difficult, surely. The hesitation you may feel in answering is not due to the ambiguity of the question. But do you believe that guilt is hell? If you did, you would see at once how direct and simple the text is, and you would not need a workbook at all. No one needs practice to gain what is already his. Let's talk about it. We have already been promised that God does not see any guilt in us. Original sin is an idea from traditional Christianity that a lot of us struggle with. We think that we are born sinful and that we have to earn our way into heaven. The Course tells us the exact opposite. We were created as God's beloved children. Nothing has ever changed that. We do not have to do anything but simply accept this as truth. Let go of our guilt and shame. Once we are able to do that 100%, we won't need this course at all. Let's read on. We have already said that your holiness is the salvation of the world. What about your own salvation? You cannot give what you do not have. A Savior must be saved. How else can he teach salvation? Today's exercises will apply to you, recognizing that your salvation is crucial to the salvation of the world. As you apply the exercises to your world, the whole world stands to benefit. We have talked about this idea before, in which the work that we do benefits the whole world. What we do, what we think, what we say has an impact on people that we will never come into contact with. We will never know their names, but the Course has a ripple effect as we have a loving impact on the people that are close to us, and they have a loving impact, the people that are close to them, and those people, and so on, is multiplied throughout the entire world. At a spiritual level, it has an even greater impact. What we do matters. What we think matters. It matters a lot. Let's read on. Your holiness is the answer to every question that was ever asked, is being asked now, or will be asked in the future. Your holiness means the end of guilt, and therefore the end of hell. Your holiness is the salvation of the world and your own. How could you, to whom your holiness belongs, be excluded from it? God does not know unholiness. Can it be he does not know his Son? I think this is a rhetorical question. Of course God knows who we are. God knows who we are as his beautiful, perfect, beloved children. We have to hear it over and over again because we are trying to change our old way of thinking. And we know that old habits are very hard to break. So let's be willing to continue to do these practices and the repetition of me saying the same thing over and over again, and simply accept that our holiness is the salvation of the world. Let's read on. Your holiness is the answer to every question that was ever asked, is being asked now, or will be asked in the future. Your holiness means the end of guilt and therefore the end of hell. Your holiness is the salvation of the world and your own. How could you, to whom your holiness belongs, be excluded from it? God does not know unholiness. Can it be he does not know his Son? I love this next part. Your holiness is the answer to every question, now, in the past, and in the future. When we accept our own holiness, we are automatically moving ourselves from the world of the ego to the world of love, the world of God. We are holy because we are literally part of God. Our holiness is our salvation. My holiness, your holiness, our holiness is the end of guilt. Literally, the end of hell. Hell is not a place. Hell is in our minds. This is what happens when we live in the world of ego. When we accept our holiness, we can say goodbye to all those lies. We no longer have to dwell in hell. God does not know unholiness. It does not exist for God. It's all a made-up concept, just as sin is. God does not see it. It simply does not exist. It is an illusion in the world of the ego. Let's keep reading. A full 5 minutes are urged for the 4 longer practice periods for today, and longer and more frequent practice sessions are encouraged. If you want to exceed the minimum requirements, more rather than longer practice sessions are recommended, although both are suggested. Begin the practice periods as usual by repeating today's idea to yourself. Then, with closed eyes, search out your unloving thoughts in whatever form they appear. Uneasiness, depression, anger, fear, worry, attack, insecurity, and so on. Whatever form they take, they are unloving and therefore fearful. And so it is from them that you need to be saved. Let's talk about it. We will review the form of our practice sessions at the end of today's session. But for now, let's talk about these unloving thoughts. These are also called attack thoughts in the Course. Did you know that anytime you're feeling thoughts such as depression, uneasiness, anxiety, anger, fear, worry, insecurity, that these are actually unloving thoughts? They are unloving thoughts towards ourselves. We are hurting ourselves when we are thinking in this way. These are the thoughts of the ego. The more that we recognize this, the more that we can take the tools of the Course and apply them whenever these unloving feelings, thoughts, and emotions come up. We can say to ourselves, my holiness is my salvation. Salvation from myself. Salvation from my unloving thoughts. Let's read on. Specific situations, events, or personalities you associated with unloving thoughts of any kind are suitable subjects for today's exercises. It is imperative for your salvation that you see them differently, and it is your blessing on them that will save you and give you vision. Let's talk about it. When we're doing our practices, we simply want to be aware of any unloving thoughts that we have had about any person, place, thing, or situation, and apply today's idea to it. My holiness is my salvation. Let's read on. Slowly, without conscious selection and without undue emphasis on any one in particular, search your mind for every thought that stands between you and your salvation. Apply the idea for today to each of them in this way. My unloving thoughts about blank are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation. Would you like to do that right now? I'll give you a second to think about a person, place, thing, or situation that you are having any unloving thoughts about. Maybe it's about yourself. Maybe it's something that you did or something that you said or something that someone else did or said. Let's go ahead and use today's idea. My unloving thoughts about are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation. You may need to say that over and over again today in order to loosen any sticky thoughts that just won't let go. Let's read on. You may find these practice periods easier if you intersperse them with several short periods during which you merely repeat today's idea to yourself slowly a few times. You may also find it helpful to include a few short intervals in which you just relax and do not seem to be thinking of anything. Sustained concentration is very difficult at first. It will become much easier as your mind becomes more disciplined and less distractible. My mind is a little distracted right now because there's a mosquito buzzing around me. I think I better deal with it. This is a great form of meditation, to simply say the mantra a few times, thinking about a particular situation, and then just sit in quiet for a few moments. Just let your mind relax. This is all helping to unstick those persistent situations. Let's read on. Meanwhile, you should feel free to introduce variety into the exercises in whatever form appeals to you. Do not, however, change the idea itself as you vary the method of applying it. However you elect to use it, the idea should be stated so that its meaning is the fact that your holiness is your salvation. End each practice period by repeating the idea in its original form once more and adding, if guilt is hell, what is its opposite? In the shorter applications, which should be made some 3 or 4 times an hour and more if possible, you may ask yourself this question, repeat today's idea and preferably both. If temptations arise, a particularly helpful form of the idea is, my holiness is my salvation from this. Let's talk about our practice sessions for today. We are asked to take 4 5-minute practice sessions, first thing in the morning, last thing just before going to sleep, and 2 more throughout the day. I would suggest that you put the reminder on your phone. When we do these practice sessions, it is suggested that we search out our unloving thoughts and then apply the idea for today to whatever comes up. In this way, my unloving thoughts about blank are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation. We may want to repeat that several times and then just sit quietly for the 5 minutes. If we feel like we need more time, it is suggested that we first do more frequent practices and then we can do longer, but it says both are actually recommended. So if we want to get more bang for our buck, that's how we do it. We apply the idea for today. My unloving thoughts about blank are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation. We end each practice period with, if guilt is hell, what is its opposite? If we have temptations throughout the day, any time that an unloving thought comes to us, we simply say, my holiness is my salvation from this. We might want to be specific. My holiness is my salvation from Joe. My holiness is my salvation from Bryce. He's going to need to say, his holiness is his salvation from me. Isn't it wonderful to have some fun with these ideas? We don't have to take ourselves too seriously. It's important to laugh because our worldly way of thinking really is ridiculous sometimes. At least I know mine is. Thanks so much for staying right until the end, my friends. Are you ready for our special treat? Lolita has found some cheesies on the beach. What a deal on this beautiful sunset of a night. Look at this. We are richly blessed. Sending all of you so much love on this gorgeous Mexican evening. My holiness is my salvation. Have a holy day, my friends. I love you.